What's up, Hammerheads? Welcome back to the channel. This is the Hammers and Wrenches YouTube channel, and working on the car again today. Last episode, we put a rear differential stiffening kit in the car, and my initial impression was that it did something but not a lot. But after a week of driving this car, I've realized it made leaps and bounds in the chassis of this car. The power delivery, before the differential had a lot of movement in it, and putting the stiffening kit in there quelled that movement, stopped it, and honestly the car is actually easier to slip the clutch, it's easier to pull away from a stop sign, the shifts are crispier, it really puts the power to the road in a much better manner. So if you didn't see that video, I suggest you go back and check it out, because that made a big difference, way more than I thought it was going to. So in this episode, we are continuing on the quest of stopping movement in the drivetrain, putting better bushings in things, and seeing if we can get the power to the ground in a more efficient manner. And today, we are going to be installing a transmission mount. Now, we could buy a factory replacement transmission mount, but what fun would that be? So, a company called A4 Motorsports, they specialize in European car aftermarket parts. They've assembled this nice little kit. This is the transmission mount. Very small, simple little mount, but the factory mount has voids in it. There are voids in this rubber that allow more movement. This bushing is solid. There's no voids in it, and it's actually a stiffer material than OEM would be. So this is actually supposed to be 25% stiffer than an OEM mount. And this is called the street line. They also have a track line, or this is the street density, my apologies. And then they have the track density mount as well. The track density mount is supposed to be 60% stiffer than stock. But I think this is going to do what we need it to do. So, new bushing, comes with a little hardware kit, which is very nice, and so we're going to be installing that today. It's way back under the car, so we have a creeper to roll under there. The car's already jacked up, so let's get under there and see what we're looking at. Hey, one more thing before we get under there. We'll talk about a couple of the tools we're going to be using today. The factory bushing, there's a center bolt that goes through it all. We'll see that in a minute. It takes a T45 Torx bit. The new bushing actually uses an Allen style bit, and it is an 8mm. So we're definitely going to need those two. There's some bolts under there. There's some bolts in this kit. I was already under the car, and there's actually kind of like a mix match of bolts in there right now, which doesn't make me happy because it means that everything was apart before. But we're going to need a 1/2 inch of all things socket, and we might need a few other size sockets. We'll figure those out when we get under there. Always keep some handy wipes around. PB, we got the little impact gun if we need it. Bartle skeet, as always. We got our whole tray of 3/8 drive sockets here. A hatchet in case zombies attack. Keep a rag around, and anything under the car like that, anything that's associated with the drivetrain, we're going to put a little blue Loctite on them. Blue Loctite, it essentially acts as like a lock washer, if you will. It'll hold the bolt on there. You'll be able to break it loose with a wrench, but it won't be able to back off on its own. You don't want to use red Loctite on anything you ever want to take back apart. So blue Loctite is going to be our friend today. So let's get under that. Alright guys, we're laying on the creeper, just a creeper for getting under the car, not a creeper dug. You don't ever want to lay on a creeper dug. There's probably like 2 of you out there that are going to get that joke. So let's roll under the car and see what we're doing. So, way back under here, so you guys, I told you it was way back here. Here is where we're working. Now, let me get a little bit more light on it for you. There we are. So, see the bolt right? Sorry for the shaky work. See the bolt right there? There's supposed to be another one right here, guys. So this mount is actually broken. So that kind of sucks. But there's a,
There's a couple bolts up in here. There's one right here, hard to see. There's one right over there that's hard to see. And then there's a bolt right on this back side here. So first thing we got to do is take that one bolt right there out. And then we should actually be able to get a jack on the tail shafts of the transmission and jack the transmission up enough to make room in here where we can actually get the mount out. So we're going to pull that bolt, see if we can get enough movement in this transmission to allow us to get, you know, what we need to get apart. So let me do that. Okay guys, we got that one bolt off, and I jacked the transmission up some, and I'm sort of, you know, afraid to go any higher with that. This cross member unbolts right over here and, you know, right there on the other side. So I think I'm going to pull at least the bolts on this one side. I don't want to pull the exhaust apart, so I don't want to pull the cross member out. So I'm going to see if I can even like loosen up the bolts on this side, take the bolts completely out of that side, and see if I can get this great big cross member to sag down here a little bit. And if you're wondering, the exhaust goes through that side. This side over here has the exhaust hump in it as well, because this car comes with a multitude of engines in different countries and everything, but they offer a V6 and a V8 option motor in this car. So kind of cool that they use the same mount for every car. Cost savings, you know. So let's get these bolts out and see if we can get this thing dropped down a bit. Okay, so I loosened up the bolts over there and the ones on the other side, and it drops, it also drops this, which is like a big crazy cross member that holds suspension bits. So I don't want to be messing with that too much, because if we take that apart, that's going to mess up our front end alignment. So I loosened everything to get it to sag a little bit, but don't take that apart, because you're going to have your car realigned. If you take that cross member out, this is going to be hanging, and chances are your car's going to need realigned when you put that all back together. It's not going to be off a ton, but it could be incrementally off. And I have some room in here to work now. You can see how much room is actually up in there now. So I'm going to start pulling these bolts and see if I can wiggle this thing out. Check in a minute. Okay, so we have the little bracket out of there. This thing is pretty crunchy, pretty crusty from the years, but holy crap, this thing is broken, guys. Look at this. So honestly, I can tell you that the car doesn't drive that badly. So, you know, you might own a vehicle that's got some miles on it, and you might think that it's pretty much totally fine, but you might have this going on. So you might think, it's just an old car, like things are a little bit sloppy, whatever. Replace this in your car, it's going to drive like brand new. So this is awesome that we found this and we're doing this. So, like I said, T45, get one of these dealy whoppers. It goes bang in there, and then get one of these dealy whoppers. It goes bang like that. And then I think this side, yeah, this is a 16 millimeter. So what we're going to try to do is see if this guy has got enough power. And it doesn't. I was afraid of that. But, you know, we have bigger, more powerful tools. So let's get those. Alright, so we got a pair of ratchets. We're going to see if that's going to work. I could have a better workbench. I may need to get myself set up with a little better workbench for doing this. Let's see. Yeah, that's pretty stuck, guys. So we're going to go up and put this in the vise and take this apart, because that bugger, she's pretty stuckified. I'm 100% positive this is, you know, a factory original part, and that nut has got to come out of there. So I have an air compressor up in my big garage. If we got to do that, I'm going to go bust this thing apart. That nut comes off,
and then this whole thing should come out that way. Okay guys, so I had to go up to my big garage and get a grinder and use the vise and whatnot up there. But check this mount out. The metal is broken right there. This piece is completely missing. And while we're at it, see this hollow void right here? That's what we're talking about, that the new mount doesn't have any voids in it. See that? So that you know, space through there is what allows a bunch of movement. So this new mount is ready to be put onto all of our bracketry. Okay guys, so I got it figured out off camera. I've already been under the car and had all this indexed. So this guy, it doesn't fit anywhere with the new mount. So we throw that away. Big washer down here, little washer up there. The billet spacer, I believe, would be like if your bolt was too long, you could space that out. I tried using the spacer and my bolt wasn't even long enough to make it the whole way through with the spacer in there. So, you know, this thing just needs to be bolted together solid. So there's metal inside of here that needs to be solid to this metal, and then this metal out here is independent with rubber between, so it can, you know, isolate and move. So the kit with the billet spacer, I don't really know what to tell you about that. I'm not going to use it. I'm 100% confident that this is bolted together, you know, plenty well. This is a nylock washer, which is actually nice, I'll say that. And this is 50 foot-pounds. Tighten that down to 50 foot-pounds. The two bolts that go in here are only 20 foot-pounds. Those are the ones that we're going to put the blue Loctite on. So this thing is ready to go under the car.
Okay, so we're under the car and we got this thing slid in there. So I think my first move, I'm going to get it bolted in down here with the two bolts up through first. And then I'm going to hope to let the jack down and have, you know, this stuff right up here align. So I'm going to get the bottom down in here, get that bolted up, and then try to lower the jack and get this top to line up. Let me get that done.
Okay guys, so the mount is in, it's installed, but we got a problem, and I'm going to blame this on 034 Motorsports. As I was putting this one bolt in to tighten up the mount, the threads yanked right out of the mount. So I don't know if it was a bad casting or what. I ordered the mount off of ECS Tuning, but they did not manufacture it. It's an 034 mount. So I'm going to contact ECS Tuning and see, you know, what they say, see if they can work with me on possibly getting me a new mount. In the meantime, I think I'm going to drill out that hole and try to fit a slightly larger bolt. I have a pretty good bolt selection up in the garage, and I have taps and drill bits and whatnot. So I'm going to see about drilling this out and trying to get a bigger bolt in there. But I think I'm going to go to a hardware store and find two bolts that are just slightly bigger than the ones that, you know, it came with, and drill them out, tap them, and put two new bolts in and hope that it holds. I'm also going to contact ECS Tuning and see about getting that part replaced. But for now, I'm going to say that that part is a fail. I don't know, maybe other people have perfectly fine luck with that part. Maybe the casting was just bad on the one I got, but, you know, most of the time this stuff works out. Today, it didn't work out, and that's part of the frustrations of working on cars. So it's at least drivable right now. Like, everything's bolted together. I can take those bolts out, you know, one at a time, drill it, tap it, put a bigger bolt in, and that'll probably, you know, fix it. But I'm just don't feel good about it at the end of the day. But, you know, oh well, that's it. So to the parts store I go later. Okay, so I went to Lowe's and here's what we got. So here's the old bolt.
Now this is an M8 by 1.25. That means that it's 8 millimeters and there's a thread every 1.25 millimeters of length. Now this is actually a 3/8. It's 3/8 16 to be exact. I wanted to go 3/8 24, but they didn't have them, so 3/8 16 is what we got. And 3/8 of an inch is 9.25 millimeters. So this guy, 8 millimeters. New one, 9.25 millimeters. So just slightly larger. And what 16 means is that there's 16 threads every inch. Like I said, I wanted to go to 24 just to have, you know, a finer thread, more thread. But they didn't have everything I needed, so 16 is going to do the trick. So also blew my mind, Lowe's I have a 3/8 tap, and I have, you know, I probably have a 3/8 16 tap and a 3/8 bit, but they're probably old and crap, so I bought some brand new ones. So amazingly, Lowe's had everything I need. So I'm going to get under there, drill this crap out, thread this crap, put the crap bolts in, and hopefully this crap isn't crap anymore.
Okay guys, it's done. I drilled, and then I tapped a new hole. I put the new bolt in. I only replaced the one bolt because, you know, the bolt the kit came with on the one side actually held, so I'm not going to disturb that guy. I'm going to let that be. But I did get an extra, so someday when I'm under there, I'll check it out, see what things are looking like. If that other hole decides to let loose, I have a bolt. And as you can see, my table is destroyed. I left it this way on purpose to let you guys know that sometimes working on cars doesn't go as easy as it seems in YouTube videos. This one fought me. I had to loosen the subframe. I had to kick the subframe around, pry it around to get everything to line up. Then once everything was bolted together, I moved the subframe back to where it was. And I could tell where it was by seeing where the factory bolts were tightened down. So I moved everything back to its witness marks. That's a big thing to remember when you're working on this stuff. If you loosen something, you want it to go back, you know, and tighten up exactly where it was. So I paid attention to the witness marks where the washers and the bolts were on the subframe. I lined everything back up as best I could. And I'm bolting it together, and you know, this guy right here ripped all the threads out. Now it's on the floor. So, but that's what we do. You know, when something strips out, you get like a tiny bit bigger bolt, you drill it out, you tap it out, you put the bolt in, and it works. So I said the kit, I wasn't real impressed with the 034 transmission mount kit, but now that it's in and it's done, everything's bolted together and everything is going to work just fine. It's just, they could have done a little bit better job. I'm not going to take too much away from them and beat them up too bad about that. But the car is done. When I drove to get the new hardware, I didn't really notice a big difference. I'm going to have to drive the car around some more and see. But, you know, that was the point of this episode, was to stiffen up the drivetrain. And we went from a broken mount to one that's better than OEM. So we're done. Car is drivable. Everything's fixed. Disaster averted. Thank you for watching. Thank you for subscribing. Thank you for liking. We'll see you on the next one. Deuces.